myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on that.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It's Geordies here, Geordies there, and I'm joined by Mitch, George, Steve Hasty, Al Walid, Stu, and we did have Steve Wilkinson, but he's disappeared. We'll have to bring him back in when he reappears. Maybe he's having internet issues. But good evening. And it's that horrible period in time, Mitch, where it's an international break, isn't it? And Geordie Tune for Life came in early doors and said, "Evening, lads, I hope you're well. I bloody hate international breaks, but I understand why we have to have them to a certain degree." Having said that, obviously some top players pull out, clubs involved. Yeah, international breaks, it's just a nightmare, isn't it?
It's difficult when it's friendlies. You know, obviously the situation for us is we've already qualified, and so we're in this sort of situation where it's friendlies, and it's a bit sort of always around this time of year when you've got the FA Cup semi-finals coming up and you've got the international break before it. It just all feels like a little bit sort of, will you stop pissing about and get on with the real football, please? You know, and that's what it kind of feels like. That said, once again, I think we've been very smart in terms of what we've done. You always used to hear about, it was always the glamorous teams that were going away doing warm weather training, and now it's us. We're almost expected to be somewhere in the Middle East now. They picked a great time to come to Dubai. They picked a fantastic place to go to. The facilities at Nadal Sheba are just absolutely second to none. In fact, I think the only place that rivals Nadal Sheba at the minute is probably Aspetar in Qatar. And they're the only two places that you want to come to in the Middle East at the minute. And so if you're going to do it right. We've got quite a few teams out here at the minute. Some of it's tied up with stuff at Expo 2020. I think the AC Milan are staying in the same hotel that our lads are at the minute, which must be an interesting place to go and have a pint. You know, so if you're going to do an international break, you might as well do it right. And it looks like there's certain things are starting to come to fruition as well. Great news about both Wilson and Trippier starting to ramp up their training. You know, there's a few things obviously we can talk about in terms of injury recovery there, and a few things I've been talking to a few people about over the last couple of weeks. And so I think if we can get both of them back on track, we'll be doing very, very well. And again, if, like I said, I think at the weekend, if we come back from this break with half of what they took away from the break they took in Saudi, I think the squad will be very revitalised come the next game we're playing, Anger.
George, international breaks, they're just boring, aren't they? There's not a great deal to do. And when you're not involved in the later rounds of the FA Cup, you're left twiddling your thumbs. But Newcastle they've done the right thing, haven't they? Neil saying they're out in Dubai. It's it's good team bonding for the lads.
Absolutely, and a lot of the stuff that's been on social media is all good stuff. There's none of it you could say was doing anybody any harm. In fact, they're doing a lot of good, a lot of sensible PR, talking to fans, talking to other football interests, as it were. And I've enjoyed all of that. It really has been sensible, and as Neil says, and he's there on the ground. It couldn't be a better place to go, to be honest. I mean, at this time of the year, Marge and I would normally be having a 3 or 4 weeks with Neil, and we used to love it at this time of the year, but not to be at the moment, unfortunately. And the other thing about this international break thing is that Neil hit it on the head. It's one thing if it's World Cup or European Cups, but when it's friendlies, it kind of makes you wonder about it, because like it or lump it, people get injured in friendlies just as easy as they do in the real thing. In fact, sometimes people pull out of things in friendlies and get themselves injured instead of going whole hog like they would in a real match, and they back off in a tackle or something like that to save something getting hurt, and they end up getting hurt even worse. And the number of times I've seen people who've end up getting really serious injuries because they've backed out of something, or they've gone into something half-hearted. So that is a danger, I think, especially, as I say, when it's friendlies. But as you know, a supporter of Newcastle United, you can only be thrilled that it's us able to do this sort of thing, and all credit to the management and as you all know, and Neil certainly knows, me and Dad's there and getting involved and talking to people, and you know, that all can only be good for Newcastle United. And you know, all the doomsayer things from last week about the geopolitical stuff is you know, is just so much tosh as far as I'm concerned now. You know, they're showing the benefits of where we are and who we are, and that's absolutely great for me as a supporter. Added to that, there's been one or two fascinating things on the airwaves this week. In fact, only today, I don't know if the rest of you picked it up. Do you know that Michael Owen has said he's not angry anymore since he hung up his boots? Well, bloody hell, Michael, I wish you'd been angry when you had your boots on, Burrows, because we didn't see it. He's not angry anymore since he hung up his boots. My God, what a thing to say. I mean, the poor lad really does need a gobstopper to shut him up sometimes. He just says too much. And that sort of thing. And the other things that irritated me was her Obersturmführer Kamp's comments about Nottingham Forest. I mean, how dare he say to a club like Nottingham Forest with their history, oh, I know nothing about them except what I used to see on Robin Hood on the television when I was a kid. That really is hurtful. I mean, if I was a Nottingham Forest fan, I'd really be upset. And, you know, I did respond on Twitter to that and said that, well, the only time I think of Germany is when I hear the air raid sirens in Ukraine. You know, is that similar? I don't know. And the other thing about it is when he was just a kid, probably getting his backside smacked and his lederhosen by his mother, Nottingham Forest were winning the bloody European Cup. You know, so, you know, if you don't know nothing about them, Jurgen, then you should. And that's that really did, well, as you can gather, hack me off a little bit. Back to Newcastle. Things are going well. Let's keep it that way.
Yeah, definitely 100%. Yeah, Stu, I mean, it's good to see the lads get out there. 2 defeats on the trot after such a wonderful run. I don't think it'll put the dampeners on it. And it was good to see Callum Wilson and Trippier going out there as well.
Absolutely. I think it came at the right time, whether it's for international breaks or not. You know, the international break, this one was for it is for most nations for the qualifying for the World Cup, the playoffs, isn't it?
Yeah.
But for Newcastle, from where they were at the start of the year, and then they had the break in Saudi, so what they've achieved, the amount of energy they've put into that, whether it's physically, mentally, you know, it's like they've all been at school and they've all had to have detention and they've grafted. So I would say they've burnt themselves out a bit. So this break will give them a time for a bit of R&R. And we know that the team spirit is so much better now. You know, they're happier together. They seem to be a team rather than just a group of individuals. And it shows the difference. I know Mitch alluded to it there, that we'll go to places like Dubai and Saudi Arabia and things. But it's not just that, it's the methodology and the training as well. I understand they've taken drones there so they can get an aerial view of how they're training and positional sensors. They can use that in the back room, you know, when they're going through tactics and making people more aware. You know, if you look at the comparison to what we've had previously to that, I mean, the drones might have been there to keep Al Walid out at night with his microphone and camera, like, but I was led to believe it was for the training. And what thing, if we go back to when they had to name the squad, the 25-man squad, and there was a lot of debate and conjecture who should be in, who should be out, and there was a name like Kieran Clark, who's been at the club for longer than just about anyone that's left in the squad, you know, and the fact that he was omitted and the way he's conducted himself, the way Eddie Howe praised him, I think that in itself has shaken a few of the more, shall we say, senior pros, thinking, well, hang on, we actually do like living here. In fact, we love living here. We've based ourselves here. And I'm aiming at the Shelbys and the like, and they've all seemed to have upped the game. And we've benefited. So the team spirit going in for what's happening in Dubai, I think the whole squad will be aware there'll be at least 4 or 5 new additions that will be brought in the summer to improve the squad. But if we put the 25-man squad up, there's probably 11 or 12 people or players who'll be thinking, am I going to be here this time next year? So when we go back, although we're not mathematically safe, I don't think we'll be taking our foot off any pedal, and they've got their futures to play for and they'll be going for it. And we as a club and as a fan base can only benefit from that.
Steve, it's great to see Dad being active, Steve Wilkinson, on the social media front, and great to see our Paralympian out there, Stephen Miller.
Yeah.
Fantastic to see him having a ringside seat watching the lads train. I mean, that was just it's not a PR masterstroke. It's just what these people do.
Yeah, and I think obviously I would be love to be there instead of Stephen, but he's
well, of course, I think most of us would be. Even if it was just for the sun, I'm not really bothered about watching Newcastle train.
But I think it is great that they're drip feeding in the Mairdad when he's seeing people. It doesn't look as though it's planned, but maybe it is planned, and the opportunity to see with Steve, obviously great connection with the club through NUFC right from the beginning when I was first involved in 1998 and still involved now as secretary. So, the connection with the club there, and I'm sure they've had a few words about how Amanda and Mairdad maybe can come to one of the NUFC dues. I haven't been to a one for a while, but they'll be having an Easter one coming up soon, and it would be fantastic if Amanda and Mairdad made an appearance of that. And there's every chance they'll just pop in. I think Rafa did when they had a do after he signed a few years back. I think it was on the day he signed that he just turned up at the NUFC do that night. So I'm sure that they've talked about when they're out there the sort of disabled supporters and while we're looking at the ground improvements, I think I'm sure Stephen's had a chance to have a word with them and say, well, this is what we would like to see and improvements and that. But it's all good stuff. Every time they get a chance, and it's all positive stuff, you see. And I'm sure, as the earlier lads have said, that this break is probably come while we don't like to not see the football. And I've never been a great fan of international matches, particularly friendlies. You talked about injuries. I think didn't Rob Lee break his arm in a friendly match in the 90s when he played for England?
Yeah.
And I think it was a dangerous time for us in the league where I can't remember what it was, but it wasn't a great time to have somebody like Rob Lee out. And you can understand if the game matters, but if you're going to play friendlies, it's only done for commercial purposes, I'm sure. I don't think that they're really getting any major benefit from it. Yes, have a training break and get everybody together and benefit in the way the teams are. But I think to charge people, people are wanting to see competitive matches, whether it's an England friendly or not. And I think you're not expecting anybody to be holding back. So I think it's a tricky time to play them. But as far as the trip away with the lads, I think it's a great chance to recharge the batteries, and I'm expecting to see them revitalised like they were after the previous break in Saudi when they take on Spurs next week. And you kind of tell what sort of result we'll get in that game. It's there's two types of Spurs. The ones that look really good, and it's the others that you're wondering why they're so high up the league. So let's hope it's the latter.
Yeah, definitely. Steve Hasty, just the sight of Stephen Miller sitting there and watching the training was great, wasn't it? Just good PR, like I said to Steve Wilkinson there.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's a great lad as well. I think most of us have met Stephen on numerous occasions. He's black and white through and through. He goes to away games, home games, and he's a great lad. So it's excellent to see. He's an Olympian as well. Let's not forget. He's a star in his own right when it comes to the Paralympics and the sport. So brilliant to see. I'm just going to pick you guys up on something. I mean, especially Stu and our lead, because it's 15, 16 degrees here on Tyneside. They didn't need to go away to Dubai. I mean,
I've got the AC on. It's 36 today.
Yeah, it's not.
I'll be AC on the car.
15 degrees. You know, they could have been down the coast, you know.
Classic, down at timeout. Steve, we're having a little issue with your internet connection, mate. You might want to log out and come back in before we'll come back round again, but it's a little bit dodgy, Steve. So I'll take you out and we'll go to Al Walid while you sort that out. Al Walid, yeah, it's another break in proceedings in the Premier League, but it's good to see. And you sent me some photographs, didn't you, of Isaac Hayden and the management team with one of your friends.
Yes, I'm going to tell you a bit about it, but could you please tell me what Steve Hasty said about, he asked me something because I didn't hear him. He said you didn't go to Dubai or something like that.
He was just saying how warm it was in Newcastle at the minute, Al Walid.
The heat wave.
And that didn't need to come out. That's all.
Okay. Yeah.
It's actually 18 degrees, which sometimes I don't even get in the summer.
Actually, I would like to go to Dubai by myself, but unfortunately I couldn't because I have a full schedule at work, and my colleague who usually cover me, he's on vacation, so I couldn't leave. I wasn't allowed to go. But likely this is something. One of the things I'm very thankful that I have a lot of friends and a lot of Geordies chatting with me sometimes, and from all around the world. And it's a coincidence. One of the lads was in Dubai. He's from London, but he's a Newcastle fan. And somehow I get location of the place of the players. So he said, let's do teamwork. You give me information. You give me some interviews and information, and I will give you the location. And that was it. Actually, I am enjoying being a journalist, seeking for news and exclusive. It's kind of something really enjoying lately, especially when I tried it successfully in Jeddah.
Yeah, you did very well, Al Walid, and thank you for that. Don't forget, folks, if you want to ask George a question, then get your question across to us, and we'll ask that around about 5:30. A couple of questions already coming in. I can see them mounting up. But Mitch, yeah, getting back to football. You know, I've looked at the game again against Everton, and I wanted to touch on something off the pitch, not on the pitch as such. And the pitch invader was annoying. It did take us out of our rhythm. But I think it was the sight, Mitch, of somebody with a knife in the crowd, handing the knife over to the steward. And
told you that on Amigos, mate. Your reaction when I talked about it on Amigos was fantastic. Now, you were like, what?
I couldn't believe what you were saying, and obviously now I've seen it, Mitch. I'm just still staggered by that. It's incredible, isn't it?
Very
and
much so.
There have been anything done.
Well,
before I go on, firstly,
sorry.
I must offer an apology to both Al Walid and everybody from NUFC Dubai. I knew where the guys were going to be, and I've known for a while, but I was asked by somebody at the club not to open my big fat mouth. So I'm really sorry. I could have told you all, but I respect when I'm told something by someone and they say shut your big fat mouth, I shut my big fat mouth. Simple as that. That's why people talk to us sometimes. And so I did know, and I'm really sorry, but I was
no worries. I respect and I understand that.
Thanks, great. So yes, when I was told it, I was about the knife. I was like you. They did what? And what makes it worse was not only did they give the steward the knife, but after the incident had finished, he handed it back.
Yeah, I'm still in the daze about it.
And like I said to you on Friday, it sounds like sour grapes, but that needs investigated. The same group of people, it wasn't the same guy, it turned out apparently it was somebody different, but it looked very similar, tried to do the same at Tottenham at the weekend, but that got stopped. And again, that raises questions at Everton. How can somebody get onto the pitch, get up to the post, get two ties around his neck and get them tied to the post before somebody stops it? And then why is one of your stewards taking a knife off somebody out of the crowd and then handing it back afterwards? It's outrageous. It's not even, it's funny, but it's not. In modern football, in the football world we have right now, as football fans, we get thrown enough shit at us about this, about that, about everything else. Not only are we supposed to now be absolutely whiter than white, teetotal, and never say a bad word, we're also the moral arbiters of the game and a hell of a lot more. So when something like that happens, and it goes south enough to cause a 14-minute delay in a game, that I am convinced, utterly convinced, through us, and we didn't recover from that break the way Everton did. And fair play to Everton, because they did come back strong after that. You know, this isn't sour grapes about losing the game. It's more criticism about our mental frailty, probably after the games we've had in a short period of time. Something had to give, and it gave. And that's okay. But the whole incident raises far more questions about what happens at Goodison Park for me than anything else. Absolutely outrageous. And then when I saw the video of it, because it was Everton fans who told me about it. It was Everton fans out here who said, "Hey, Mitch, have you heard about the guy with the knife in the crowd?" And I'm like, "Knife? What?" I was like you on Friday night. Because your face on Friday night was a picture, Steve. You were incredulous. You were incredulous. You just went, "What? Eh?" And that was what I did. And then when I was showed that video separate from Twitter, that was sent to my WhatsApp. I'm like,
Incredible.
What the fuck? It's ridiculous. The whole incident is ridiculous. He made even more so by the fact that he wants to stop use of oil, and then he uses two items that absolutely rely on oil to be produced to make his bloody protest, you know.
Yeah.
The irony of that is not lost on me. What an absolute shambles, though. At Goodison Park, really, for that entire incident to unfold the way it did.
But George, somebody asked a little bit earlier on. This isn't going to be the Ask George question, but it leads into the same subject matter. So I will take this. He says, "I hope you're keeping well. Bloody hate international breaks." Obviously, we came to that, and then he goes, "Question for George: what does he think about the idiots trying to get games stopped? For example, the Everton game and a few more that's on TV. Stop oil campaign, and now it's come out. It's been funded by Forest Green owner Dale Vince, who gave them £10,000, but says he didn't know what they were going to do. I wonder if the Football League will find the owner who was getting stopped. It's crazy." So, I mean, again, I'll stick an allegedly in there because I'm not sure if that's true, but you know, he's clearly read that somewhere.
Wow.
What's your thoughts on that, George?
Well, if it is true, then the owner of Forest Green need to watch out, because that really is serious stuff as far as I'm concerned. That he actually gets involved in something that has a major impact on a game which has nothing to do with his club. Nothing to do with his club at all. The knife with the magistrate's hat on, possession of that knife that lad had in the ground is an offence. And it's a sort of offence where the magistrates would retire to decide how long he got, how many months would he get for carrying that knife. And then the other bit of that is that really did make me made us rage as well as smile. It was the senior steward who come on with a pair of bull croppers that would have been able to cut the anchor chains of the Titanic that were so bloody big, and he got them on to cut a couple of cable ties. For God's sake, ask the ambulance man for his scissors out of his first aid box. They'd be better for cable ties than those big bull croppers. But if that's true, the other thing is that, look, I'm not against people protesting. What I am against is I see people protesting and they're not even sure what they're protesting about. And I'm not sure they are. Stop oil if that's what you want to do. But if it was as simple as that, it would have been done years ago. And as Neil rightly says, why then go on and use things which you can't make without oil? You know, the cable ties or plastics or probably use as much oil as any other business in the world. and there they go. But I'm not against people protesting. That's fine, and indeed we've had our share of protests at St James's Park. But in my opinion, always been done in a sensible, in my view, way, which weren't going to affect either on the pitch or off the pitch or be danger to people in the way that was. But I mean, a 40-minute break in the game was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And we didn't recover. You and Neil are absolutely right. We didn't seem to recover as well as Everton did. In fact, it gave Everton the impetus to hang on to what they thought was going to be 0-0, and then eventually they got the chance that came their way. But no, I protest by all means, but think about what you're protesting and think about how you're going to do it.
Yeah, Iron Maid Rhino says it was a Gerber pocket knife or a Gerber pocket knife. They are legal.
Yes.
I use one for work,
Yes.
but taking it to a football match, no, you just wouldn't.
I'd question that. It depends what his job is.
Mm-hmm.
If he's something like a tyre fitter where a knife's absolutely necessary, he might get away with it. But other jobs you wouldn't. I have to tell him. I mean, I don't know what he does, but he's right. If you've got a certain job, that knife could be legal. But on other jobs, no way.
Yeah, I was down at Everton. Steve Middlemas is saying, what was the trouble at Everton with the stewards at the away end? Keith Rose says the shenanigans at Goodison Park, access issues for away fans, getting into the ground, the pitch invader stunt, match delay impact. Stewards made Everton look like a right joke in a comedy club. I can concur, Keith, it was a nightmare. I didn't get dragged into anything, luckily, but I saw plenty of people who did. Some people were a little worse for wear, which is what happens when you go to away games. Some people were just victimised. Some stewards were completely over the top. Some stewards were spot on. The ones who were next to us were fine, you know. Once again, there's a I'm not going to name him. There's a guy who regularly collapses at Newcastle's games away from home, and he's got a medical condition. And you know, they were quick to help him out and get him into a wheelchair and wheeled off for medical attention. Another one of the Newcastle regulars got taken away with heart palpitations, and then brought back. The stewards were great with him, but then, you know, in the away end, there was a huge flare got let off at the end and it misfired. It dropped on the bloke behind me, and it's just a good job it didn't hit his head, because he would have had burns on his head. The flare actually went through the guy's coat, burnt his coat, and actually burnt his leather shoes. So he was playing hell about that. There was people playing hell about that. The police and the stewards were just telling him to F off. It was very amateur. It was amateur night. You know, some of these. Yeah, well, it wasn't great, and there was issues getting in for most people. I always go in early, but yeah, Stuart. It almost feels like a bit of a return to the bad old days in some places, and there is bother. There's skirmishes. There's, you know, knives now and an away end, and you know, flares are starting to become more prevalent at games. I mean, it's different for you sitting out there watching it on TV. You maybe don't see it, but I see it going away from home this year. It certainly feels like a return to bad old days, and that tends to come with social issues on the streets. It's, you know, when things aren't going well for people at home, they like to let off steam when they go to the match.
Yeah, joking aside, you know, you had in Liverpool, as it is Everton, you know, you've got have you met me mate Stanley? You know, that used to be a catchphrase for about 10 years, wasn't it? A lot of people carry Stanley lives and would get ripped with them back in the day. And the game seems to have been cleaned up, but whether it's been the COVID and a lot of people just releasing a lot of mental pressure, and to me, it's giving people an excuse to be an idiot, and some people get encouraged to do so. But the irony of this protester who tied himself to the goalpost, they could have just left him there. We never troubled the goal anyway after that. You know, they could have just left him tied. It made no difference, would it? You know, we didn't even have a shot after that. But I'd rather talk about the football. I said something similar when I was with Al Walid last week. As a fan base, we get very protective and defensive when people have a go at us, you know. You know, what's it going to do with you? Why are you coming on to Newcastle United? And, you know, there's things going on at Everton, at Chelsea, and, you know, we're passing comments on it as well. It's you know, it can be hypocritical of us to do so. The way I understand what's happening with our club is it's in the ascendancy. They took all the players out there, not just the 25-man squad. They took everyone who attends training. They've got a unity. They've got the team spirit. And for sure, we as a club will be climbing the league. There'll be a summer of transition, but it'll be a summer of improvement as well. And we'll go in the right direction. And these other clubs, no matter who buys Chelsea, they're not going to be able to improve them and write off over $1 billion worth of debt. Whoever buys, all the other clubs, they're not going to have the wealth at their disposal that we have. And sometimes we should be sitting smugly and just let it all unfold and accept. Sorry, George, somebody's swearing there.
No, I thought I was secretly commenting on something on the bottom of the screen. Somebody said, unless you're a chef, there's no need to carry a knife. I'd argue that if you're a chef, you're still in trouble.
I mean, the carrying a knife at a football match, you don't need it at a football match. I understand that it's a tool of the trade for certain jobs, but you're not doing that job at the game. You leave your place of work, you can leave the knife there, and common sense should prevail. And as a fan base, I mean, Steve, you just mentioned there, we've got knackers who will set off players, and they don't think of the damage that can happen to. It could be their friend, it could be their family member, but most importantly, it's one of us, and we have so much to look forward to. And it's like as if we've got this ability to just try and mess it up for some reason. We've got Hayden out there, we've got Lewis out there, we've got Clark out there. These three people, they could have just been abandoned, but they've been brought in. So the club are leading by example. And as fans, we should. And of course, we're going to get baited about who owns us. But we're getting dragged into conversations that really we're not experts on. And then all of a sudden, people become experts on them. And it's quite, for me to say, sometimes we're better off saying nothing at all. And apart from just talking about how good our club is and how good it's going to be, and talk about the positives, like we said, Murdad's out there. They're inviting people to go to the training sessions, the Paralympians. There's a huge charm offensive going on, and they're doing a lot of right things. And this is what I believe we should be talking about. We should be applauding the club for trying to move in the right direction. And they want to, and I've said this many times, they want to get to the top as soon as possible. There isn't a set plan where you have to say, okay, we have to wait 4 years or 5 years before the challenge. They want to do it next year, and with the right additions, I'm not saying they'll be top 6 next year, but they can surely they can give them a nudge, can't they? Because some of them will be struggling, and we are the place that people want to play for now. So regarding some Doylem who wants to tie himself to a post, if we're giving too much, if we're giving too much talk time and space and stuff like that, it encourages our people to do it.
Great word. Great use of the word Doylem.
Yeah, no, I had to check myself there. But the TV companies normally get it right. They don't remember there was a spate when people used to go streaking and that on the pitches, and they didn't show it and things like that. Or if there was any violence, or if there was a horrible injury. But for some reason, this guy got all the TV coverage, that probably more than what he actually hoped for. But it was like a fast show sketch when you seen this big guy coming with these huge bowl cutters. What on earth's going on? Even if someone had a lighter, they could have just lit the ties and cable ties and burnt it and snapped them off. Give him a clip, take him out to the station and charge him. Give him a
clip, did you say?
Yeah.
My mum, who's still in hospital, said we should have just left him there on the post and batted the ball off him. So I think
Eric, 100% right. Yeah. 100% right. Well, that's what he wanted, wasn't it? He wanted to be tied to the post. Leave him there.
Definitely. Steve Hasty, it's a strange world we're living in at the moment, and that situation was strange. But I mean, when things are progressing so well in the game, am I wrong, or are we going back to the bad old days in a lot of ways?
I think society's taking a step back, Steve, and that's probably one for your political Wednesday night show.
Yeah. 8 o'clock tonight. 8 o'clock tonight. But we're not discussing this.
No, but I think society has taken a step back. I think the whole lockdown situation has affected a lot of people, and I think there's a sort of air of we're free, we can go around and we can do what we like to a certain extent, and I think that's probably stretched into a little bit of the youngsters at the football and and that type of thing. But getting back to the protest itself, Stewie said something there just before, and he said, you know, while the air of positivity is still at the club, that's what we should be concentrating on. But quite honestly, somebody at the football club should be taking Everton to task about this, whether it's the fans liaison officer, whether it's the head of security who liaises with the security at Everton before each game, and then presumably does some sort of debrief after. And the police, and you know, there should be questions. I was going to say questions in the house, but that's the statement. You know, there should be questions being asked, in the same way as there should be questions being asked at club level, not at FSA level, and not at supporters trust level, and fans having to do the work as happened with at Elland Road with the trouble getting into the ground. But questions should be asked by the proper authorities. It should be the club taking the other club to task. It shouldn't be fans taking other fans to task, or getting in touch with a supporters trust from another club to say, you know, you need to be doing this, and then putting them together with the police force in that particular area, and then getting thanks. It should be the club. That's the club's job. The club's job when they sell tickets. Everton's job is to make sure Newcastle fans are safe in their ground, and Newcastle United have a responsibility to ensure that whatever Everton said they will be doing to keep the fans safe, they're doing it, and they should be held to task by the Premier League, should be held to task by the FA. And this really, really does annoy me when you hear of incidents and you hear nothing from a club, and it suddenly becomes an issue for society or an issue for a supporters organisation that has to take the lead. Take the lead yourself, Newcastle United. You know, get your supporters liaison officer out there to do something about it. Get your security officers out there doing something about it. And let's read about that in the Chronicle, and let's have Luke Edwards writing about that in the Telegraph instead of stupid articles that he does write occasionally, where we're now being told, you know, oh, Newcastle United are going to have only £90 million to spend, and all that's all designed for clicks and fast bait and stuff like that. And that's what paid me off this week, quite frankly, Steve.
Yeah, it's not unusual, really. But there we go. Yeah, okay. Steve Wilkinson, the I mean, for you going into the ground, Steve, is slightly different from me. You sit in a different area than me, obviously. But I mean, security, I don't get checked. I mean, I go in the Platinum Club, Steve. It's in James's Park. Access 23 that I go in, there is nobody on that door. So ultimately, I can just go in. If I didn't have a season ticket, I'm pretty sure I could just go in that door, walk in and walk into the stand. Because I'm sure that most of those guys who are at the top of the stairs don't check every season ticket. It's impossible. It's an impossible task to do. Therefore, they're not frisking people. They're not checking everybody who's going in. I mean, anybody really could do anything they wanted in a football ground, I would say.
I think this, Stuart, and there's two things. Just saying about the Everton, I haven't heard, and maybe I've just missed it. It should be a formality for the Premier League to charge Everton with bringing the game to dispute in some way for allowing any pitch invasion, whether it's running on the pitch and attacking a player, or which has happened at times, or somebody being able to get on and tie themselves to the post. That should have been something that I would have heard by now, to say Premier League are charging Everton, and then Everton would automatically have to look into their own security issues. It shouldn't be down to Newcastle to have to make a claim. That's bringing the game into disrepute, allowing that to happen. But I think you're right, Steve. I think the security is lax in some ways, but do we really want it to be over the top? I went to Man City, I think it was 2 seasons ago, and it was like getting into Fort Knox at Man City. You were checked at least 3 times, and me checked as well, which I'm quite happy to be. I never like to think, oh yes, he's in a wheelchair. He's not somebody that's going to bring in knives and and any other offensive weapons. But I'm the ideal person to do it. You know, if you want to get something into the ground, or if somebody wants to be, I'm saying because I'm in a wheelchair, Mitch, not because I'm that sort of character.
Give it to Steve. Hide in his chair.
So if you see Steve Wilkinson going into the match with a suitcase, folks, report him to the nearest steward.
The machine gun, not a violin. I'm gonna have to go in with you, Steve, at the next game, because as soon as I walk up at 10-3, like I usually do from the Irish Centre, I'm gonna get stopped and searched. You can guarantee it now.
Classic.
I'll see you at 2:00 when you get in, Steve. Is it for that game? What's the night time, isn't it? I better be there about 3:00 in the afternoon. The Wolves game. Yeah, we'll go on to the Chinese as well. That's on the off the agenda now.
The agenda, yeah. Oh, well, there we go. Alwaleed, security across in your country for matches. Is it strict? I mean, you've been to Newcastle now. You've been to Brighton. You've seen what it's like to come into St James's Park and Brighton's ground. How did it compare to Saudi?
No, actually, we have more restriction. Yes, more restriction. Yeah, we have a lot of body check, especially for the bucket. It's a total procedure, so it's much more strict. Yeah,
much more strict.
I can tell you from my experience in Dubai, I've done Asian Champions League game between Al Ahly and Al Hilal, and that was a proper tasty evening. Roy Ayton got us the tickets and went in. That was a proper football evening, and that was being searched on the way in, and then after when you'd got in. I can also tell you a tale of a mate of mine, Clive, who had a credit card debt out here that he didn't know about, and got arrested on the way in to watch a football game at the new stadium here in Dubai because the facial recognition cameras picked him up. That was an expensive night. It cost him 30,000 dirhams, but it all got sorted in the end. But that's how tight security is over here. Things like facial recognition cameras, because we've got ID, we've got Emirates ID here. Everything's on file, your face, your fingerprints, etc. You can be picked up for all sorts of weird stuff just off facial recognition cameras, and so it is very different out here.
Yeah, definitely something to look at, I think, for the football club. Somebody made a rather good suggestion there. Steve Middleman said the stewards are outsourced company. Should it be run by the club? Interesting, but you need to go through the security protocol. You need an SIA badge. You have to be trained. That's the problem, Steve. So the club would still need to rely on people who are SIA trained.
Well, didn't Ashley let ours out to Phoenix, didn't he?
Phoenix Security, Stevie Howe's company. Yeah. They had it originally. Maybe they might come back in. Who knows? As you always.
Is it ironic that we've had trouble at the two away games in probably two of the oldest grounds of clubs in the Premier League, in terms of grounds that have never been redeveloped for years and years. Leeds United hadn't been in the Premier League for 16 years. Ground's falling to bits. Everton looking to build a new ground. Whether it ever gets built now is another thing. But that's got to be something else you've got to look into.
Certainly plays its part with the fact that there's been problems getting into these places. Malfunctioning turnstiles and stuff. Definitely worth bringing that up, Steve. Yeah. Okay. 15.
Sorry, Steve. I definitely went quiet when we were talking about Everton away game because I was waiting for my son to tell you all about the last time I went to an Everton away game.
Go on then. Well, go on. You can't leave us hanging on this.
Well, a young man about 2 rows down from us decided at half time to moon the big police sergeant down on the cinder track beside the pitch, and the police sergeant seen him, and you could see this good big sergeant, and he shouted to some of his officers, "Get him!" And he pointed to this lad from the O'Shea's that was mooning. So what we all did was we all kept changing our seats so they weren't sure where he was. And I'm chairman of the North Tyneside bench at this time. I mean, if I'd ended up in the lock, I would have known the chairman of the bench that was going to deal with us on Monday morning. But this kid set the whole thing going. Eventually, they did get their hands on him. But all they did was lock them up in the cells underneath the stand, and then let them out at the end. They weren't too bad on him. But again, it was in the oldest bit of the ground where there's still girders in the way of some of the seats and all this sort of thing. So you're right, it is undeveloped. But it, as I say, it made me go quiet when you realised you were talking about Everton.
Class. Okay, it's time for Ask George. Got a few, George. Got a few.
Right.
So and yeah, a good mix here. Gerard says, question for George: factor 50 or just factor 30 for today, George?
Even factor 30 is a bit ambitious as far as I'm concerned.
All right, Steve Bennett. Good evening. I hope everything's great with the family, mate. He goes, a question for George: best Irish player, North or South, he has seen playing for Newcastle United?
Well, that's a good one because we've had some smashers. Best. Oh, I think two come to mind straight away. David Craig was, in my opinion, a world-class fullback. Played for Northern Ireland. And the other side, of course, Alf McMichael was as well. But I'm trying to think there was others who set things alight in dealing with from Ireland. We had one or two promising lads. I don't know if any of you can remember a lad called Liam McEntee who played centre forward for a couple of seasons. And he looked like he was going to be a world beater, but again, he was another one of those that got a bad injury, and that was the end of him. So he was good, but David Craig sticks out like a sore thumb to me.
Okay, Roger Cook, not quite getting the idea that it's Ask George, says, Alwaleed, how's the baby?
Well, I asked her
didn't
before, I'm
expect that.
sure he's fine.
She's very nice, but she's crying a lot.
She's crying a lot. Okay, that's natural.
Can
Another
I
question for you.
Can I throw a name in for the Irish? David McCreary would put him in there.
David
Yes,
Mack,
yes,
yes.
good one. Yes,
Absolutely.
good one. Yes,
And
good one.
John,
Key
John
time as
Anderson,
well,
Shea
yeah.
Given. Yeah.
McFall.
Yeah, we've had a whole host, haven't we, really? George, I've got two more for you. Question for George: Peter Beardsley and Wilf Mannion, compare and contrast, and did they have any similar qualities?
Yes, both very, very clever on the ball and able to make a very quick pass. I have to say, though, in terms of all-round game, Peter Beardsley was 2 yards faster than Wilf Mannion was. Wilf Mannion was the foot on the ball type of player and surveyed things and took things calmly. But he was brilliant, where Peter could do that, but he could also go from penalty box to penalty box and bang one in as well. So, yeah, I think Peter just edges it because of his better all-round game, in my opinion.
My favourite question.
Wilf Mannion was great.
My favourite question, though, is this one, George. This is the last one. Hi, Steve. I think you did a show on if parents should smack their kids if they are naughty. So, question for George. Has he ever given the Geordie dentist a tan on his backside for being a naughty dentist?
Well, that's a question for him. The answer is no.
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 Wow. No. Not even with a slipper or something?
No.
Never.
Was he that good, like?
Well, no.
Marge's job.
Go back. I talked to you about the Chicken Road Academy and as a bit of fun when I was a kid myself.
Yeah.
There were never any. Yes, I got into trouble, but violence was never the result of that. And they all were the same. My dad, grandfather, the two uncles. It was a case of sitting down and making sure you understood what you'd done wrong rather than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But hand in heart, I can say, no, I've never touched our Neil.
Fantastic.
Well, I've got a question for Midgeton. Did your mum scalp you?
Yes, exactly.
No.
Marjorie? Did Marjorie do it?
The threat of that chat with my dad was enough, to be fair.
You had a luckier childhood than me. I'm not going to that, though. Derek Sharp asks us all a question, bitch. He says, Mike Dean's retiring. Can I have a one-word answer from the panel?
Oh, God.
VAR. Because that's where he's going.
Exactly.
Yeah. George?
He's not really retiring.
Hurrah.
I think we'll all say that. Stu?
Whoopie fucking do.
Steve Hasty.
Mike who?
Classic. Steve Wilkinson.
Stick with Tranmere.
And, Saudi Gaza Al-Walid, what's your thoughts on Mike Dean retiring?
Flush.
I think I'll stick.
I have to say I enjoyed the comments of the ex-Middlesbrough manager come on,
Warnock.
Neil Warnock. He was asked what he thought, and Neil Warnock said he could have done it 10 years ago. Nobody would have bloody noticed. Which I thought was wonderful.
It's an interesting thing that he's going to be permanent VAR. That's a change from what they do now, though, isn't it? So I don't know how that's going to work out. Whether they're planning to review things. I don't know how that works out.
Yeah, that's interesting. Lots of people there saying that they were belted. Get the belt out, says Tom Dixon. Geez, I was walloped off me ma, says Nicholas from the Felon. Lots of bad memories getting brought back by that question. I might avoid them in the future. Kenzie mentioned something that Steve Hasty's already touched on tonight. Al-Walid, will come to you. Any thoughts on PIF spending less in the summer than they did in January? This was reported by Luke Edwards. So he says it's a massive pinch of salt, though. I don't think anybody can have any heads up on this kind of thing. People don't know what we are going to spend, Al-Walid, do they?
Actually, I just come to Steve Hasty. I think he said something about clickbait and stuff. And I did say earlier that I enjoyed doing some exclusive or bringing in news, but this is not actually my job. But if this is your job, sometimes you are eager just to do something. And Luke Edwards, unfortunately, maybe sometimes I think he only get it. The whole time I cover the Newcastle media, he only was right only once with I think Chris Wood news breaking of the contract. I think this is the only one time he was right. Other than that, it was like, let's be right here. So for this, it's totally wrong, and we hear that UEFA, unfortunately, maybe it's good news, maybe that Perez, he lose Florentino Perez, Real Madrid president, he lose the battle, but he won the war. And the financial fair play is lifted, so no way we're gonna stick with some budget. Of course, we will have. It's not about the money. We will get great players in next season.
Yeah, I agree. Steve Wilkinson, it's again just clickbait. I think. Would you agree?
Yeah, exactly. I never take any notice of when media talks about how much money we've got to spend. Even when we had the 50 million allegedly the other year, why should you tell anybody how much you've got to spend? That just says, oh well, we'll have all of that. I would think even without knowing at this point in time what sort of players we're going to need, because things are going to develop over the next couple of months as we play the final games and. As Dan Ashworth comes in, for example, as well, that would be an issue that will affect how we spend our money. I don't think anybody knows how much we'll need to spend. Obviously, we'll have to stick in with the rules on financial fair play, but I can't believe any number, that we'll spend. So 50 million, we had, it's you might spend that on one player. I don't know, but I expect to see at least 5 new signings coming in the summer to add to the squad that we've got now, and we'll probably have to spend more than we did to get them.
Steve, it looks like a lot of people are agreeing with you in the chat as well as the panel, of course. But it's already started the silly season, hasn't it? Neymar being linked earlier this week.
Yes. Never. Absolute classic, isn't it? Absolutely brilliant. I mean, I wasn't happy with Neymar, I must admit. It was Mbappe for me. I can't believe that we're going to come for Neymar. It's ridiculous, isn't it? When you've got the choice of 2, and you go for the wrong one, it's ridiculous. There's got to be questions asked about the club if they think they're going to be doing that and trying to con me into being convinced that Neymar's a better player than Mbappe. I'm sorry, I'm not having that.
Yeah,
but getting back to what the whole transfer thing. I mean, are we honestly led to believe that Dan Ashworth, who hasn't even got the job, hasn't even sat in his own seat yet, is already being told how much he's got to spend, and that's it, because Luke Edwards has got some sort of an exclusive? How weird, man! Wake up, shake your head. It's just a story, a filler during what we've started with at the very beginning of the show. international break. Nothing else to write about. He's not there in Dubai. He's not picking up any little snippets from his contacts within the club. Possibly because they can't afford the phone call to Dubai to ask them. I don't know, but quite frankly, it's one of those nothing stories. It'll go away. It'll probably be writing in a couple of weeks' time that they've upped it to 120 million or they've reduced it to 50 million, and this will just carry on and play out all the way through from now until the end of the transfer window. And let's not forget that there'll be outgoings as well. There'll be players that will sell that will be bringing in for. The club is always going to be evolving. It's just nothing new. This is where all football clubs work. There'll be money coming in. There'll be money coming out. There'll be new signings. There'll be players leaving that squad, and there'll be new players coming in. The only limitation is that we've got a 25-man squad, and it's that numbers game, and it's picking the right dobbers for the right spaces, and that's what Eddie Howe's about. So.
Yeah, Stu, silly season's about to begin again, isn't it? That's the problem. We're going to be linked with God knows everybody.
Well, the same journalist and others said that we're going to only spend 50 million in the January window. So it's the club will play it canny. They're not going to say this is our war chest, because people we've seen what happened with the Seville and Lyon. Lille. They just put the prices up anyway. But I think it was Steve just mentioned that we'll have people going out. If there's 4 or 5 coming in, there has to be 4 or 5 going out with that squad as well. They're not going to all go for free, although some of the contracts are up. So I think I'm with what Al Walid said, and they'll listen to Eddie Howe. They'll improve, hopefully with the help of Dan Ashworth, who's probably been doing a bit of holiday work, and. Right, we need this area improved. This is the type of person we need. This is the type of player we need. This is the type of, as Mick Lowe's quite often says, proper player, proper person. You need someone with the right mentality. You fit into the squad that's getting built, and the team spirit that's there. Throw in the odds, well, at least one. I still think there'll be one marquee signing, as long as the signing has the correct work ethic. I don't think anyone would begrudge the proper superstar coming to Newcastle to help them on a bit. But whether it's 50 million, whether it's 90 million, or it's 90 million net plus whatever we sell, it doesn't matter. Imagine talking about that any time in the last 15 years. This is what we're going to have a load of money to spend. And if they say 50 and spend 90, let them say 90 and spend 150 then. It's Luke Edwards won't know anyone in the club who's going to divulge that information to him. So whether it's clickbait, whether it's a guess, whatever, but he has a job to do, and that's to get people to read his columns. And it's an easy throw the dice for him, isn't it? Some people will go and give him the clicks that he needs.
He's certainly done that.
Yeah,
George.
Yeah,
he does it.
And there's already been so many names thrown into the pot. It's incredible. It is laughable. It is a silly season. On the other hand, as a Newcastle supporter, I'm delighted it's us they're talking about. Isn't it great to be up there with being talked about as somebody the club that could get Neymar and Mbappe and people like that to come and play for them. The big job I suspect that Dan Ashworth and others will be doing, and Eddie Howe particularly, on the evidence of what he's done so far, is whoever they're going to get, whether it be 20 million player, a 200 million player, they'll be making sure that person fits in.
And improves the squad.
You just need to look at Manchester United. You can pay as much as you like, but if you get the wrong ones in, you've got chaos, absolute chaos, and that's what they've got at the moment. They can go on forever. They will not get any further than they are now because the infighting and all the rest of it, and that's all down to the panic buys and buys to placate supporters and all the rest of it, instead of doing the homework and buying people who matter and can fit into your club. Now, that's the one bit I'm pretty sure Eddie Howe and Ashworth and others will have right. They'll make sure whoever comes in fits Newcastle United. Like the little Brazilian we've just got. He is a dream. He is a dream. I mean, his statistics against Everton, 100% long passes, 100% short passes, 100% dribbles, 100% tackles. I mean, goodness gracious, we've never had people like that. And I'm sure they did their homework when they bought that kid. He's not just a flash in the pan footballer. They saw somebody that could fit in with what we've got, and I think that's what they'll continue to do.
Yeah, Trull says we've got the wrong striker in January, but they will fail now and again. Look, they got a striker that was available, Trulls, and I still say Chris Wood's done a fantastic job. He's
Done an
not scoring
incredible
goals,
job.
but he's done a great job watching him. Mitch, silly seasons here with the papers, and the usual suspects are always going to put out their type of story, shall we say? This, it would be boring, I guess, if they all wrote the same thing.
And all of this just sounds to me like the statement that was made a little while ago about 50 million per transfer season, per transfer window for the next 5 windows. And it just sounds like somebody doing the maths based on that to me. And there's so many parameters we don't know. We don't know what we're going to generate in terms of income. We don't know what new sponsorship's going to bring. None of that's public knowledge. So you're guessing. I have a personal feeling that Castoria have been told that that hook's going to be slung at the end of the season. And there's something else happening there, and that's going to change things. If you look at the deals that Barcelona, Man City are trotting out at the minute, there's clever people inside our club who will know how to make these deals work for the Newcastle United. And therefore, anybody who tells you they know what we're going to spend or be able to spend in January is talking out their arse, as far as I'm concerned. Nobody knows. And therefore, going forward, isn't it a great thing, like my dad says, to be talking about at the top end of the food chain, saying, how much are they going to spend?
Not many will spend more.
No, absolutely, and it's nice not to be just looking forward to being top of the balance sheet league. and so let's bring January on, or bring the summer on rather, with an expectation and a hope. And the expectation is that they're going to do the very best for our club in terms of adding players and financially that they can, and I'm sure they will. And don't listen to the white noise.
Great advice. Don't listen to the white noise. Okay, just for fun, we always have a celebrity from these parts. As a child, you got to guess who it is, and simple one this week.
Oh,
Cheryl Cole.
Cheryl Cole.
Cheryl Cole, yes, Cheryl Cole. So well done, lads. As always, great to spend an hour with you. We're off now to go and record a special for next week because there's no live shows next week. It's all pre-records, and we're going off to record our favourite games ever. So that should take you on a nice trip down memory lane next week. But until then, take care, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks, lads.
Right.
Thanks.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone.